Thanks for joining me. This would be Mabu Part 3, where we're starting to get into details. Honestly, when you start doing Tai Chi and Qigong, there are way too many details to think about. And if you try and put too many of them into your brain all at the same time, your brain starts just dancing around and going, oh, what about this, and what about that, and you stress yourself out. Tension builds throughout your system. It's not the best practice. In fact, it's probably the opposite of what we're going for, as we want to take away tension. We want to get rid of that nervous energy. We don't want to be worried about where certain body parts are, or if we're doing it right or correct. It's more the fact that we just want to get into the habit of doing it. We want to get into the practice. So I don't like to focus on too many details too fast. Really important, just work on the basic stuff until that becomes second nature to you. Once that becomes second nature, you just add on another layer, you add on another detail. That's why we started this whole standing series, essentially hanging out casual, new in package or new in box. Just feet underneath us, standing up tall, arms relaxed at our side, and breathing, hanging out here, right? Just get used to this casual sort of thing. Honestly, this is where you are probably going to take most of your Tai Chi practice out into the regular world, is just when you're standing there, can I hang out here and be totally relaxed and balanced, left and right, front and back, weight centered on my feet, and just be totally relaxed in that. From there, we started adding a couple of details in the fact that when we get into our Taoist awaits the dawn stance, we're going to make sure that our toes are precisely aligned straight ahead, or our feet are aligned straight ahead, and that our legs were going to be a particular width apart. And we wanted to get comfortable with that width and that particular alignment of our feet. And we're going to be tall and floating away through the top of our head. So we're just adding a couple of little details to it. When we take this back to our casual stance, well, my feet are under me, but I'm still floating up tall through the top of my head, and I'm still very precisely aligning my feet straight ahead. So just because my feet are under me doesn't mean I do this sort of thing or that sort of thing. Everything is still nice and aligned, and I get really used to this alignment so that I can go from here to Taoist awaits the dawn. Everything still stays in alignment. I still stay floating up through the top of my head, and everything is nice and relaxed. From there, we're challenging our balance a little bit, bringing ourselves into that attention stance. Right? And here we're just giving ourselves a little bit of a challenge by shrinking our base of support. We're really focusing on our balance and making sure we get that nicely refined front and back, left and right, so that we can stand up nice and tall and straight. Again, this same sort of feeling that we're establishing here applies to new in box, applies to Taoist awaits the dawn. All of these things are just keep adding and building. We went from our attention stance to our ballet first position stance and doing our pliés. And this is really just focusing on getting our hips into alignment, adding this particular layer to it, making sure we have our hips nice and flat, directly over our legs, and they're not coming in at any funky angles or anything like that. We're not sticking our butts out here. Right? We're not driving forward anything. We're just gently but very precisely putting our hips into alignment. Then we take that alignment and we bring it back into all of our other stances. Right? So when we're doing our new in box, just casually hanging out on the street, I know that my hip alignment is the same as that other position. And I'm going to try and keep this hip alignment in everything that I do. Next, we went into our horse stance. So this is the same width and alignment as Taoist Awaits the Dawn. My hip alignment from ballet first position, and I'm going to start challenging myself to start moving but maintaining these same alignments. So my hips are nice and flat, they're the same sort of position over my legs. My weight is 50-50, front and back, left and right, and as I bend my knees and sink down, I maintain the hip alignment and I maintain that weight distribution as I drop down. So that's the thing that I'm focusing on here, is I'm just adding another layer, another detail to this. So as I sink down onto my perfectly designed and comfortable bar stool, I maintain hip alignment, I maintain weight distribution, I maintain this upright feeling through the top of my head. I'm not leaning, I'm not twisting, I'm not tipping. So everything remains the same, we're just adding an extra little detail onto it. So it's details, 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 details. And you can see these start to add up really fast. Just adding on layers, adding on layers, adding on layers, adding on layers. And if you go too far too fast in your practice and you start wanting to do all these funky moves and get all kung fu-y with it, and at the same time you're still trying to think of, oh, is my weight distribution correct, are my hips correct, blah 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 blah, it gets really tough to do all that stuff and maintain any sense of calm. And we're really after a sense of calm. So that being said, here's some more details that we can add into our horse stance. One of the big ones that is going to become more and more important, especially as we go forward, is our knee alignment and essentially how it tracks over our toes. In our static postures, this isn't going to be such a big deal, but as we start to move, it's going to become more and more of an issue. And it's one of those things, it's a habit that we want to form as quickly as possible because we don't want to correct it later. And quite often, if you're coming into a Tai Chi or Qigong class and you've got knee issues, it's because you have a bad habit that you've been walking or moving that particular joint in a less than optimal way for many years or decades, and you've come to Tai Chi class to try and correct that. So that being said, what is the correct knee alignment over our toes? And that is, knees have to track directly in line with our toes at all times, regardless of how our legs are positioned. If our feet are positioned straight ahead, as we have been doing, oops, I gotta back up here, as we have been doing for our Taoist Awaits the Dawn and our horse riding stance, our toes are pointed straight ahead, or our feet are pointed straight ahead. We want our knees to track straight ahead as we bend them, okay? For a lot of people, due to life, our knees are going to want to sort of cave in a little bit, right? That's a very extreme example, doing the sort of thing. Our knees are going to want to cave in on us. So as our horse stance develops, what we want to do is we want to get the feeling every time that we drop into our horse stance that our knees bend, that we're actually letting our knees almost fall outward. Right? So if our knees feel like they want to come in, like the weight goes into our insteps, As we sink down into our horse stance, we want to feel like our knees are almost going to flare out a little bit, so that our knees wind up precisely aligned over top of our toes. Now, if for whatever reason you have the opposite, where you're a little bit bow-legged, this is usually going to accompany a more toes out sort of walk. If you walk a little duck-footed sort of thing. It's harder to do if your toes are pointed straight ahead and very precisely aligned, but you could still have the feeling like the instep of your foot is lifting off the ground a little bit, and our knees are actually pushing outwards, kind of falling away from our feet. If that's the case, then what we want to do is, as we bend our knees and feel ourselves sinking down, we almost want to feel our knees sinking inward a little bit and coming into alignment directly over top of our toes and our feet. This is going to be a tricky thing for you to figure out on your own. If you got a friend who can check this for you, awesome. If not, film yourself. Probably not in baggy pants. It's trickier to see. Put on your best swimsuit, whatever. And you're really just checking that alignment of like, where's the center of my knee, and is that going to track directly over top of that line we are establishing between our big toe and the rest of our toes, straight back through our heel. That alignment has to remain precise throughout everything we do. And we're going to use our horse stance to make sure we do that. As part of our regular meditative daily Zhanshuang, hugging a tree stance practice, we're going to make sure that as we sink into it, we are sinking down and our knees are precisely tracking over our toes. Sorry about the central heating. We are in a basement. I will try and speak up a little bit, I guess. So that is another layer that we can add to this, is that we always want to make sure our knees are tracking over our toes. Next up, as another layer we can add to this, for our arms, we want to make sure that there is space kind of in our armpits here. So when we're holding our stance, we don't want to be closed down here. We also don't want a ridiculous amount of space, like we're not popping our elbows up here. So we want to kind of achieve a balance point where the weight of our elbows is pulling down, but there is still space inside of our armpit here. So we're keeping this as open as we can, allowing a little ventilation. Don't want any stinky pits or anything like that, but we're still allowing our elbows to hang. One of the common things we'll see is people will start off trying to bring their elbows up as high as they can. We want to let that soften and hang down, let a little weight go through our elbows without collapsing in here. Again, this is just another layer you can add. Don't worry about it too much if you're still focusing on your knees. Don't worry about your knees too much if you're still focusing on keeping your pelvis flat. It's important to do this layer by layer by layer. As you get comfortable with one and it becomes second nature to you, add the next layer. Again, we started off just, can I be casual straight up and down? Can I precisely align my feet forward? Can I be tall through the top of my spine? Always. Can I align my pelvis nice and flat? Can I bend my knees while maintaining that weight and pelvis alignment and straight up and down? Pretty challenging adding 3 things all at once. Okay, now as I get down here, how are my knees tracking? Are my knees tracking straight over that line? Are they bowing out or are they coming in? I'm going to very precisely align this. I'm going to add this layer. Next, as I'm holding here, is there a weight through my elbows and is there still space under my armpits? Okay. Next layer that we're going to add, what's going on with my hands? So my hands are open, but not stressed open. They're closed, but not like fist closed. They're just in a comfortable, almost grabby position. Honestly, the way I like to think of this, 2 large coffees. So in order to do this, our area here is still nice and flat and level, so we can hold a couple of large coffees in front of us. Right. Park this down by my side and sink into my horse riding stance. Holding a couple of large coffees in front of me. Now, I want just enough pressure to hold these, not enough to pop the lids off or anything. I don't want to burn my hands, so I'm holding them as lightly as I possibly can. And by allowing weight through my elbow and space in my armpit, I get a little bit of a suspension system going on to this here. So if I were to be in a car or something like that, bouncing around, I get a little bit of a shock absorber that's going on through my body, so I'm not shaking the coffee out, anything like that. My hands are nice and open. My fingers are open, so I'm not crushing them down like this. I'm not widening them out as much as I possibly can. Just comfortably holding a couple of large coffees. All right. Or tea, or whatever. But that's a great way I like to think of it, as just holding them out like that. Order for 2. And then last couple of details I'm going to add here. Once this sort of system starts to become really comfortable, we've really been focusing on the up, like through the center, the crown of our head, and just letting everything hang off of that. I like to really focus on getting that center line refined both up and down. So this means that I'm going to take the feeling that I've got of floating away from the top of my head. I'm going to reverse that to the lowest point I've got below that, which is basically my perineum. It is that gap, that hole in all of our pelvises, thing that goes straight down. I want to feel that that area pulling down, hanging down, like there's a plumb bob there, like, you know, as much as this is a string attached to a helium balloon, out the bottom of my perineum, there's a string going down to a weight. And that weight is going to determine what my center of balance is. I want that weight to be hanging down exactly in the middle between my feet, exactly in the middle, front and back. I don't want that plumb bob swinging around in any way, shape, or form. It's not going left, it's not going right, it's not swinging front, it's not swinging back. It is hanging down in the center. So really refining that center line, up and down, head floats up, perineum goes down. Holding a couple of large coffees, knees bent, knees tracking straight over the toes. Again, adding another layer. The last layer that we're going to add physically for this is our tongue is going to be on the roof of our mouth, like we were about to say the letter T. So t, t, t. or sometimes an R. Basically, you just want your tongue up kind of in behind your teeth, not pressed up against your teeth, not adding any pressure. It's more like just a place to hang out. So tongue goes up to the roof of the mouth, and you just hang out here. It just becomes comfortable. You don't try and talk while you're doing it. But anytime we're in our standing zhangzhuang, we're going to add this layer to it. If you were doing your Tai Chi form in your nice relaxed, practice environment, that's where your tongue is. Just a habit to get into, nothing to stress about, and not a thing that you want to be worried about, especially if you are still working on all the other layers. Again, I can't stress this enough. Layer by layer, bit by bit, add these to your practice, make them normal, make them habitual, burn them into your synapses. This is my new normal. This is the thing that I'm just always going to do. And the more you do of this practice, the easier everything else is going to become. This is the foundational stuff. This is the stuff that is going to happen throughout everything else. So if you don't have to worry about this, the rest becomes choreography. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey. I hope it's helping you out on yours. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, any other details, things that you would like me to add into future videos or clear up, just post them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them and make content for you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.